Hi, folks. We're in the meeting. Can you hear me okay? Angie and case manager, can you hear me okay? Go ahead and take your. Hello?
Hello.
Is this Ashley?
It is.
Hi, Ashley. This is Lily.
Hi, Lily.
So we're just gonna give it 5 more minutes and then we'll go ahead and get started. Can you see the computer okay?
I can. I may be the only juvenile court person from Spokane joining in.
Okay.
Thanks for letting us know. If you want to go ahead and put your phone on mute the mic, that would be great.
Oh, good.
The phone?
Morning.
Who just joined us on the phone? Is this Liz from Yes? Hello?
This is Sarah from Yes.
Oh, hi, Sarah.
Hi. My earbuds aren't working. It really irritates me.
Okay. Just checking in real quick. Can you see the PowerPoint that's currently up on the computer screen?
Yes.
Great.
I do know Liz is on. Okay.
Oh, okay. Liz just messaged in. Mic isn't working, but sees everything great.
Oh, that's good.
Hi, Alessandra. Can you hear me?
Oh,
Alessandra?
hi. Oh, my video left now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
And you can, so the PowerPoint that I sent you previously is the PowerPoint that I have up here. Your PowerPoint's embedded in here. So whenever you need us to turn a page, just let me know and I can absolutely do that for you.
Okay.
When you're presenting. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us and being willing to give this amazing presentation.
See if we can get the video back on.
Not getting any emails. Alessandra?
Yes.
I'm sorry, this might have gotten lost in an email, but we also we're hoping to record this to potentially give out to our partners who couldn't make it here today. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, Lily. Hi, I can hear you now. Sorry about that.
Great. Great. Well, it's 11 o'clock, so I'd say we go ahead
Yeah, let's go ahead and start.
and get started.
Sure.
So real quick housekeeping things. If you are not chatting, please feel free to mute your mic. That helps kind of the background noise on our end and everyone else's end. But Nicholas, we'll go ahead and get us started.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Nice to talk with everyone again. I hope you've enjoyed your remaining days of summer or what summer we had. So just a few things today. We're very lucky to have a guest speaker. So we're going to quickly go through just an overview of the agenda, roll call, and then move into our guest speaker, and then do any check-in items or reminders at the end there. And just to let you all know, we have, we've attempted to upgrade from the free conference call that we're using, now using Zoom. So just bear with us on any sort of technical issues. It seems to all be working fine now, but you never know with these things.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and, again, we'll do roll call, have our guest presentation, and then do a check-in and reminders. And we'll go into roll call just to get an idea of who's on the phone. So here at CCYJ, we actually have two new team members, and I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves.
So I'll go first. My name is Lily Corey. I'm the new program coordinator for equality. I'm super, super, super excited to meet you all. And I'm sure you have gotten my emails, but I'm very excited to meet you guys all on site. I come from a background of having worked at the Mockingbird Society and also having worked at Partners for Our Children, as well as doing direct casework. I myself am a foster care alum, LGBTQ identified as well. And so I'm really, really, really stoked to be working with you all on equality. And thank you so much for taking the time today to be with us in this webinar.
My name is Kai. I'm the new Equality Program intern. Today is actually my first day, so thank you for having me. I come from a background mostly working in homelessness, especially with youth, and I've actually worked for Northwest Youth Services, who's one of the orgs on our call today. So yeah, thanks for having me today.
And we also have Lisa McCall joining us from the CCYJ team, but not necessarily not the equality team.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. My program here at CCYJ is called LINK, and it's a group violence prevention project. But more importantly, I met Alessandra several months back at an event, and she overheard me speaking to somebody. It was at a Native event, and she overheard me speaking to somebody about having a Native Two-Spirit child. And she's like, hey, now, let's talk about my toolkit. And next thing you know, I'm passing it on to my colleagues, and it's brilliantly written and wonderful. And I'm just really excited to know her and have this out there for our community to learn. So thank you for having me.
Great. So we're just going to move in to roll call. So I'll just call out the organization, and then if you're on the line, if you could just say your name, that'd be very helpful, I think.
Your name and your pronouns.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Sorry, we didn't use. If
Yeah.
you want to go around real quick
Yeah.
in CCYJ, I use she, her pronouns. This is Lily.
Nicholas, he, him pronouns.
Okay, use he, him pronouns, please.
Lisa, she.
Okay. So Department of Children, Youth, and Families headquarters. Okay. Sounds like they might not be on the line yet. Juvenile Rehabilitation, Regions 3 and 4. Okay. King County Juvenile Court. I know I saw.
Hi, this is
Yeah.
Dan Baxter, he, him pronouns.
Thanks, Dan, for joining. Lakewood DCYF.
Phil Urick, he, him.
Thank you. Next Success. Okay, Northwest Youth Services. Okay, Spokane County Juvenile Court. I thought we had Ashley on the line.
Is Ashley on the line?
Spokane DCYF.
Hi, it's Carissa Stone. She, her pronouns, please.
Thank you. Walla Walla DCYF.
Delton Hauk, he, him.
Thanks. Washington Gorge Action Program.
Yes, Lori Cole.
Hi, Lori.
Her.
Thanks.
Hi.
And Youth Emergency Services.
Sarah Phillips, she, her pronouns.
And Milo Edwards, he, him, or they, them pronouns.
Thank you. And do we have anyone else joining us?
Liz Holbrook.
Great. And I know
Is
that
Ashley her now?
We also have Liz joining us. She, her pronouns. Mike is not working. And then we also have Andy from Northwest Youth Services, Skagit County, he, they pronoun.
Right. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Alessandra. Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing before we begin the substantive portion of this webinar. We're going to record this so that we can provide it to folks who couldn't join today. So please let us know either verbally or on the chat if that's not okay. So we'll do an opt-out. Otherwise, we will be recording. Okay. So I'm not hearing anything, so I think we're okay to do that. So I'm going to turn it over to Alessandra now.
Hi everyone, my name's Alessandra. I'm the use of pronouns. Thanks for having me today. Like Lisa said, I was really happy that we met serendipitously at that event. And it was really exciting to be connected with you all and have the opportunity to share what I've been working on with you all. So a little bit about myself. I'm actually from the East Coast, but last year had the amazing opportunity to spend some time out at the University of Washington, working towards a master in public health. And I got connected with a lot of the local Native tribes across Washington state, and really was just trying to make a resource for LGBTQ youth in one clinic, and found out that this was something that each clinic I had worked at needed. And so kind of spurred the development of this larger toolkit that not only encompassed viewpoints from Native folks in Washington state and Oregon, but ended up widening to include tribes across the US. So I'm really excited about it, and I'm happy that I can share it all with you. So I'll just get, I guess, next slide. Thanks. But before I get into the actual discussion about what the toolkit is, I just want to thank and acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that most of this work was done on, as well as the providers and the youth and families who I was able to speak to gain insight into what the needs were, as well as this, to include their stories in the toolkit. A lot of this project was done with the gender clinic at Seattle Children's Hospital and the Northwest Portland Area Indian Health Board. So without them, it would not be possible. And I also was able to connect with folks at the Indian Health Service, which was really cool because it helped combine the more liberal may not be the right word, but I'm going to use liberal and open-minded atmosphere of the Pacific Northwest with some more limited viewpoints that we found across some rural areas. And so it was cool to have the perspective of folks from the Indian Health Service to try to create a resource that was applicable for everyone. Next slide, please. And just before I begin, for those of you who are unaware of what Two-Spirit means, the term was created in the 1990s by a group of Native folks who were meeting to discuss ways that they could increase visibility for Native individuals who identified as gender nonconforming. But on top of that, there historically have been individuals, as you can see along the bottom of the slide, who have not really confined certain gender. And so before contact and before colonization, a lot of Native communities didn't even have a concept of gender. So individuals really found their place in society based on what their role was. So someone was valued for their ability to hunt or their ability to serve as a healer or a teacher, rather than who they loved and who they were attracted to. And so this concept of Two-Spirit really attempts to draw back and reconnect to that historical concept of someone's identity as someone who is spiritual and cultural and plays a certain role in a community. Something that's often misunderstood is that Two-Spirit does not necessarily mean a Native person who is LGBTQ. So some people who identify as Two-Spirit might present as someone who is heterosexual or cisgender. So that's something confused quite often. I just wanted to bring that up before we proceed. Next slide, please. And so this just gets into a little bit of the context of what I was mentioning, and this is covered a lot in the toolkit. So just prior to colonization, these individuals who had these broad views of gender and representations of gender were really seen as the holy people, and they were esteemed and revered in communities. But as colonized views of gender and this binary male-female became more prominent, it became more difficult for youth and adults who had this non-conforming identity to fit in. And so that, on top of the other historical traumas and intergenerational traumas that were taking place, made it really difficult for these folks to present as their true selves. And over time has led to a lot of health disparities that we all know about. I won't read through everything on the side, but just a lot of increased rates of mental health issues, suicidality, and medical health issues as well. And so from this, in talking to a lot of the providers and youth and families, we wanted to try to make a resource that could help overcome and move past this disparate set of statistics. Next slide, please. And so I kind of already talked about this, but in addition to that, there was really a need for consolidating resources in one place, because a lot of folks that we spoke to mentioned that, you know, you can Google and you'll find information about how to discuss pronouns or how to talk about your identity in school, but there was nothing that was consolidated. And then by the same token, the information that did exist was really whitewashed, as a lot of providers and youth shared. So we wanted to create something that could still be applicable to anyone, regardless of race or ethnicity, but really had the knowledge and the culture that Indigenous folks have, you know, instituted in their daily life, and how they celebrate, etc., into this resource. And so on the next slide, I break down the toolkit itself. And so basically how we were able to do this was, in the first phase, talk with a lot of community members, like I mentioned, and then actually create the toolkit with a lot of iterations. So we would make a draft and then share it with our different community partners to make sure that what we were creating was feasible and would actually be sustainable long term. And then I should have mentioned this before, but I'm not Native myself, so this was really important to make sure that everyone I spoke to were the people that were creating this toolkit, and I was kind of just facilitating the discussion and the resources together. And then, yeah, we kind of set the stage for the community partners to play a role in actually monitoring and evaluating the toolkit, and then giving people the power and the resources to then go with this as they wish. So that was pretty cool too, to see how it was adapted, and now different places are changing it for their own tribe, and some people are like publishing things based off of it. So it's pretty cool to see it not only come from the community, but then go back into the community and have people doing great things with it. So now on the next slide, I actually go into the different parts. So the aims of it were just to create 3 sections, one for youth, one for families, and one for healthcare providers, to increase resources and knowledge. And so I actually have a paper copy that I just wanted to show you. This is online, but we also have print copies for order for free, which I'll share the link in a little bit. But it's really cool because in each of the sections, we have like a background overview, and then I'll just show you an example of the youth section. Like the youth section, and so each of these little sections fits with one of the aims of the project. So moving forward on the slide, I talk a little bit about where we can access the toolkit. So like I just mentioned, the link is listed below. You can find it online, and we also have these print copies available. And we've been trying to share it a lot through listserv and social media, with the intent that, yes, we want to have the print copy in clinics across the country, but not everyone is going to have access to healthcare. So trying to think about where can we get this out, whether that be in shelters or social media, really to target the youth. Next slide, please. And so the next part of the slide deck is just going to skim through some of the inside of the toolkit so that you all can have a brief overview of what's included. I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's like a pretty, I don't know, it's like 100 or so pages, but just to get an idea of each section so you have an idea of how you might be able to use it or how folks that you work with might be able to use it. So in terms of the background overview, like I mentioned, there's a lot of introduction to different terminology that is really applicable for any LGBTQ or Two-Spirit population. So moving on, please. This is something that we found was really important for folks that were not connected to an academic center, even and especially in like more rural and remote areas and clinics in the Midwest. And then the next slide just goes into a little bit more about what you would see inside the background section. So in addition to those basic definitions, we also have information about notable Native figures like the folks that I showed on the bottom of the slide earlier, and just some more information about traditional perspectives on gender, and then statistics about health inequality. Next slide, please. And then, yep, we define Two-Spirit, which I won't read again since I defined that all for you, but that's reiterated a lot in the toolkit. And then on the next slide, I go into just examples of pronouns for everyone, because that was a big complaint on part of both patients and providers we spoke to. Next slide, please. And then giving, in this section, since it would be applicable for anyone, we just talk about how to actually use pronouns and what happens when you make a mistake. And this is very general. Later on in the provider section, I go into actually how providers should use it and incorporate them into the discussion with patients. And then the next slide. Thank you. We just talk a lot about the importance of using a chosen name and pronouns, and I think we wanted to include statistics about this, and at least links to some statistics in this section, because a lot of you've mentioned that they brought it up to their providers and families as well, and people didn't understand the significance of actually using a chosen name or chosen pronouns, and so that was something that we wanted to reiterate in this section. And then also bring up some terms to avoid, because I think especially older individuals are still using a lot of the terms that are listed in that section. So that was just something important that we wanted to cover there. Next slide, please. And then going into the youth section, we have kind of these slogans that we put through. So for the youth section, it was, "You are not alone, you are in this world for a reason, and you are your best advocate." And so those themes are reiterated throughout the subsection. So we really start off this section with a youth perspective. So I had one youth who was willing to have their entire story like printed in the toolkit, which is really cool. And then we go into more tips on how youth can share their identity with their family members and friends, and incorporated a lot of tribal community practices in there. So, you know, maybe not I mean, we do talk about how do I play sports, but there's, you know, sections on like how do youth participate in cultural events or ceremonies and things like that. They might not be obviously out in a Google search for these youth. And then the section also gets into more specific information about what would be involved if they decided to transition medically. And then we also give a lot of information for mindfulness and meditation. So recognizing that youth who might be using this might not feel comfortable coming out to a provider or might not have access to mental health resources. And so we wanted to list some resources for them that they could use to practice mindfulness and meditation. And of course, in that section as well, we have like crisis numbers and stuff, and they're also listed like on the back cover of the toolkit. And then we didn't want to forget about sexual health. And then we end the section on talking about community. So again, ways that youth can engage not only in their LGBTQ community, but their Native community, and how they could use both identities together to really foster a sense of true self. And so moving on from this slide, I just kind of give a brief visualization of the section. So this is part of Joey's story. Joey is not Joey's real name, but that's that. And then we put a lot of quotes from individuals who are LGBTQ or 2S and Native throughout, which I think really helps the youth that we showed this to connect when they might not be able to find someone to connect to live. And on the next slide, there's information about some fast facts that people sometimes use incorrectly. So we just wanted to reiterate that if people do choose to transition, they are happy with their lives and things like that, sort of debunking myths that exist. And then this is one of my favorite pages on the right side, just talking about how youth can be resilient and be an advocate in their community. And so, again, just talking about these themes like trusting yourself and trusting your identity and giving tips to help them connect with individuals so that they can not only support themselves, but then help youth who are in need as well. And then the next slide is just another sample of what we see in the family and relative section. And so this is similar, it's very positive framing of everything with the theme of your child needs you now more than ever. So just going through some commonly asked questions and ideas on how to foster resilience and providing information about how to find support groups and medical care. And so in the next slide, I just show an example of these tips for fostering resilience. And this was created from a lot of, again, discussion with folks in the community. So they discussed that for them, resilience was really a combination of their ability to cope with what was going on, their ability to incorporate native tradition into that, and then celebrate. So this move from just accepting their child as being gay or transgender to actually celebrating it. And that's why the toolkit is actually called Celebrating Our Magic, because that was something that really stuck to us in a lot of these discussions. And then this is just a quote that one of my mentors that I work with shared, and it really ties into this family and relative section, the idea of being a good ancestor, because that speaks a lot to, or spoke a lot to the communities that I was working with. The next slide shows just more examples, but for the provider section. So this goes more into depth, starting from helping providers understand their own biases, both as someone who may be straight and heterosexual and cisgender, or however they identify with gender, but then also understanding that in a lot of Native communities, there aren't enough Native providers. So how do you, as a non-Native person, view your positionality in this community? And so we wanted to get that start right away in that section. And then a lot of the info in here is similar to what you might find in other resource sets, but we do include a lot of information that probes providers to think about how their actions are not only influencing the gender and sexuality health portion, but how they're influencing the child's Native identity. So I think that's really important. And if we click through, I can just show some samples of what's included. So on the next slide, we'll see there are, again, in this section, we have the themes: acknowledge, ask, affirm, advocate, and address. And so here's just what I was talking about with the biases. And then in the next slide, there's information about how to begin the conversation about pronouns and gender and sexuality with youth. And just going into more detail from what I showed earlier. And then on the next slide, we just talk about creating a welcoming space, and that starts from the intake at the front desk, at a clinic or at a shelter, and then on the next slide, more specific questions for if you're in a healthcare setting, what is actually happening during the encounter. And then I believe the next slide goes into switches topics and talks about how to be an ally and a supporter. And so again, talking about good ways that we can engage in this work for everyone. And then again, if you're a non-Indigenous provider, what are some things that we should be thinking about? The next slide is kind of just reiterating that this is a multifaceted process, and as individuals who are a provider in any field, we have to support the youth. And then next slide, please. This is just a really great resource for different trainings for providers, or really anyone who wants to learn more about this. The initial box is for trainings that are specifically related to LGBTQ health, and then the bottom set is ones that exist related to like native to spirit or native LGBTQ2S health. Next slide, please. So we just learned that in doing this, that all the community partners that we worked with were amazing, and that it was really helpful to have their input throughout this whole process. The one challenge we found was that in talking to individuals from so many communities, it was kind of difficult to create a resource that was generalizable to everyone. But we did realize that you know, we found a balance between including specific examples, but then leaving certain things open so that everyone could have access to it, and at least it could serve as a starting point for future toolkits or policies and things like that. And so far, it's been really well received, and we're really excited about it. So on the next slide, I believe we can skip over this. And go to the next slide if that's okay. So this is just the link that we can share with you all if interested. In addition to this project, the Northwest Portland Area Indian Health Board was working on a documentary and video series for basically to try to increase awareness of these issues in a more visual, personal level from this book that not everyone might not be able to read or pick up. And so we wanted to share with you all a short documentary that was funded by the Office of Minority Health and HIV/AIDS, and then the Northwest Portland Area Indian Health Board. And it goes through 3 different stories of American Indian, Alaska Native folks who identify as LGBTQ2S.
I roller skated my entire life. I got skates when I was 6, and I put them on my feet.
Hi, folks. We just want to check in real quick. Can you hear the audio?
No.
No.
Okay, leave that one. Okay, we're going to try this again.
Can we put subtitles on also?
Yes. Try this again.
But then people are getting their multiples. They're in here, then all they're on their computer. It's like-
I have access to it.
I got skates when I was 6, and I put them on my feet, and like I was born with them. Growing up on the reservation, there's not a lot of pavement, all dirt roads. So mostly I'd go to churches, and I would just do circles, and there's empty lots. I can't imagine what people would think when they drove past, like this little native kid just skating circles in a parking lot. It must have been pretty pathetic, but I just loved it. I didn't care. It was fine. I'm from the Diné Nation in the southwest desert of Turtle Island. It's a really beautiful land between the Grand Canyon and the Rocky Mountains and down to the Painted Desert. And I really feel a close identification with being an Indigenous person and being queer. I didn't grow up with the terminology to identify who I am in the world. I didn't have the term Two-Spirit yet. I didn't have the term Indigiqueer. I didn't know how to say what I was. Two-Spirit felt like the only thing that was attached to indigeneity. And so I was like, okay, I'm Two-Spirit. Like, that made me feel really proud. I grew up on the reservation that's pretty conservative, definitely having feelings of I don't fit in, you know, like you have to do the normal things with having a boyfriend, but being really uptight and all of my friends being like, I don't understand why you're like this. You know, even my doctor feeling surprised that I hadn't had sex or I wasn't sexually active, and I didn't know what to say. All I knew was like, it just grosses me out and I don't want to do it and I don't want to get pregnant and get stuck here. That was always running in my head. Don't be a statistic. Go to university, get out, do things in the world. I was closeted working in the Indigenous community when I first went to Portland. It felt very dangerous to come out, or I would be othered in some way. I drew a line and I didn't talk about my personal life, and my boundaries were so tight that nobody knew me. And so, like, I didn't intend to be closeted at work. People assumed I was straight, and it made me feel nervous to say, I'm not, but I don't know how to talk about that. You know, so there's all these heavy things happening in my life, and I was doing good work, but it was hard. And boss gave me some tickets to a roller derby, and it had like a light show and music and like these flashy players with big personalities, and they were roller skating, and I was like, well, I could do that. And then they were hitting each other, and I was like, I can definitely do that. And I went try out, and I got there at tryouts, and it was like a sea of white faces, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. But I put on my skates, and I was like, well, I'm really good at skating, so I'm just gonna go for it. So I joined roller derby. And then I was in this like super queer roller derby world, which was wonderful. My roller derby name was Mix Swagger. Being in the roller derby community, it was very easy to identify how I wanted to identify and be embraced by my friends. And so I started to really relax, like, okay, I have a community. It just felt freeing. And I started dating people and just felt much more confident in who I was. Because I had a high profile as a skater, I played on Team USA. I was known as like the only Native American that played high-level derby. I knew that that wasn't true, but that's what people perceived. When I went to the World Cup, I just had this disconnect because I just felt like a huge amount of imposter syndrome in that team. When all the nations lined up and we were walking in and I saw all these brown faces from all of these countries in the world, and I was like, I want to be on an Indigenous team representing Indigenous nations across Turtle Island. That would make me feel proud. So I built it. We wrote a mission statement for Team Indigenous, and we took a team to the World Cup. It sparked a worldwide movement. As I traveled around the world, I started feeling more comfortable with my identity, and I moved back here with my partner. Bonnie and I really have connected quite a bit talking about land and our relationship to land. We put a lot of work and nourishment into the soil and into what we're growing because that's going to come right back to us and back to our community. My partner is transitioning medically. I go with Bond to all of their appointments. When we first went to doctors, I was like, I just want you to know that I'm interviewing you. It is not the other way around. Being able to be a part of that process and advocate for them has meant that I can also have strength to advocate for myself. Now that health professionals use the correct pronouns and know more about treating trans folks and gender nonconforming folks and just actually consider those things in our health, I think my relationship with the healthcare industry is changing, it's growing. When I think about Indigiqueer, I think about being really political. I feel prompted to speak out quite a bit, and I also feel confident to do that. And the people around me learn a lot through it, and we all just kind of keep bolstering each other up and keep moving forward in a way that feels like we're helping our community.
think of myself as, a leisure cyclist, even though it may not seem like it. I do ride on the weekends, like ranging from 10 to maybe 70 miles. It's able to keep me in a sane state of mind because, I'm able to just get out whatever anger, frustration, and then be completely exhausted afterwards. Yeah. I live in South Oklahoma. I'm Cherokee. I also identify as trans. Whenever I was younger, my mom was working and my dad was too. So my mom usually brought me off with my great grandma, and I was able to learn a lot of language with her, and that's part of my identity. It enriched my upbringing. I go to school 4 days out of the 5 weekdays. I'm trying to just fit in. That's just such a key in the LGBT community. It's just getting in. You're trying to make sure that you look a certain way, that you don't put yourself in danger. On days that I don't wax my beard and area and everything, I feel, like I am right now, just really natural. And other days it's just I just get a pound on my makeup because a lot of days it's just, I look at myself, I'm like, there are some teachers that know that I'm trans and, I confide in them because, being Native and being trans is such a big part of who I am. They've immediately just accepted me. And, that's all that I can ask for. Even if they hide the prejudices, they can get past that and teach me. A lot of people don't know that I am trans, and it's especially hard whenever people start trying to hit on me too, because it makes me immediately uncomfortable because I'm just they don't know. They really don't know. And it's terrifying too because, there were 26 murders last year for trans women. It's the thought that, that could be me next. Scary out there. It's very scary. My sister, she absolutely just supports me and she adores me. And same with me too. I support and adore her too. We call each other twins because, we're so close to each other and, we tell each other everything. There was this one instance where we were driving down the road and I told her, I was like, I think that I'm trans. She kind of turned and looked at me and she was just like, those people are never happy. They get their procedures done and what's next? They want more. And, that really tore into me. And, I've never brought it up to her because, I didn't want to hurt her. So remember the removal bike ride is a bike ride that commemorates the Trail here. Cherokee Nation and Easter Band of Cherokees come together and then they ride from Georgia to Oklahoma. I went in the year 2013. This is something that I love. You're out on the road, people are hurting, you're taking that initiative to go and help them, not just speed off. I feel like that's what a lot of the trail exemplifies, I guess you could say. It's that mutual suffering that we all endured. And it hurts and we know exactly what other people went through. And I feel that's the same with a trans woman too. I actively try to look out for other trans girls because, it's such a sisterhood. And, we understand what each other go through, exactly like the bike ride. I'm still trying to find a therapist that could help me get on estrogen and, find a doctor that could help prescribe it. It's going to help with my body dysphoria. Estrogen will help with that. Typically, whenever I go into healthcare centers, I'm not gendered properly. There's this nurse that I really like. I was able to come out to her and I would say that I was trans and, this is the way that I'm dressing and this is why, it says male on my documents. And she's like, oh, okay. And then she was able to notify anyone that looks at it. The doctors noticed that and they started me with the bike now. I usually have my sister help, introduce me. With the bike ride this year, she looked at me and she was like, this is Lane, this is my sister. Everyone's like, hi Lane. This sounds really good. It's getting easier.
I was never a cat person. I found a cat on my cousin's driveway, and he's like, get rid of that cat. We'll put him on the road somewhere. I was like, I can't put this cat on the road. So I brought her home. I got my dog from the same person who gave me the cat, and he's in the palm of my hand. Yeah, so animals just become my kids, really. They kind of run the house every now and then and drive me up the wall, but I've never had this many animals in my life. I currently reside in Delaware, North Dakota. It's my family's home, and I'm trying to redo it for myself. The Tongue Mountain Reservation is a very close-knit reservation. didn't really have any role models. I heard the term faggot, queer. It was very hard for me to grow up in this particular area because of the stigma that was followed by, being homosexual. At the age of 16 years old, I did leave. I told my mother I had to leave here, or otherwise I would end up dead. So I left, and I became part of the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender community. I was diagnosed as being HIV positive, and I was an IV drug user, for a good part of my life. I know what follows these individuals in life. I know what words follow them. I know what the stigma follows them. I know the hurt, the pain that can be felt from the community. I felt more included in the LGBT community than I ever did being Native American. That's a hard thing to say. As I came home and I started explaining what I wanted to do here at home, everybody says, that what I'm trying to do now is something that has been needed for a very long time. I work for the Trinidad Youth Tribe, developing a new program for the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender community, persons living with HIV and AIDS, and the IV drug community as well. So it's called TMDCI, Trinidad and Chippewa Indian Life Works Program. When I went to Tribe, one of the things I said was that, maybe 20 years ago when I was growing up in this community, if I would have had this education, I wouldn't be HIV positive today. That was the first time I actually openly said anything community-wide, and it was said to the tribal council. This is what my life's about, and that's what the program to me is about. It's all about my life. I don't know if they turned the water back on. Hey, I have water. That's the big thing. I didn't have water yesterday. So this is going to be, I'm going to rename this whole area. So it's going to be like my main office where the deal is changed. This space, I want to bring in that larger table from the other room so that we can have a speaking area and meeting space to have a drop-in center for the LGBT community. And way back when, my family used to live in one of these houses. So it was on the other side of the housing lot. So it's kind of unnerving sometimes, come back to where we started. A lot of work to do. When I was diagnosed with HIV positive, that was when I really started having a good relationship with my healthcare providers. I felt, well, I don't care what you think at this point. You have to know what's going on in my life, what I'm doing extracurricularly or what I'm doing for work as well. You have to understand me as the whole individual, not just bits and pieces. The most confirming relationship I've ever had with a healthcare provider is retired now. He was one that really helped me understand who I am as an individual. He answered questions for me anytime I had a question. He laughed with me at stupid stuff. He was one that really taught me, just enjoy your life. Hopefully something will grow. It is only me working on the program right now. And with three big aspects, the IV drug community, persons living with HIV and AIDS, and then the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender community. That's three very large entities for one person to be trying to hold on to all at once. There's heart here. It seems to me that no matter how dark the community can be, there are still people there that are willing to help. No matter how far somebody falls, they're still our brothers, our sisters, our uncles, our aunts, our mothers, and our fathers. We should look at them in a negative manner because they're still individuals who may need help. Let's give them some place to reach to. I'm completely happy with who I am today, and it's really odd because it's only been in the last few years that I have actually come to accept a lot of things about myself. I never wanted to come home to this community because of the way I was treated when I was growing up. And coming to find out that that is one of the reasons I have to come home is because I don't want anybody else to have to feel like that. To have to feel they have to leave their home because of who they are.
I'm just going to pull back up the PowerPoint. So I believe at this point we wanted to kind of open it up to anyone who had any questions regarding this content. Alessandra said, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alessandra, that you would be willing to kind of help with answering some of these questions that maybe our partners might have around this particular topic. So also feel free, I noticed that there's a chat, oh wait. There was the chat. So let me find that real quick. There we go. There's a chat. So you also should feel free to type in if you need to, and I can read questions out loud. Sorry, technical difficulties trying to bring up the chat. Oh, come on. Okay. Not what we want. Well, the chat stopped working. So if you have questions or if you have comments and you cannot or you feel uncomfortable verbally expressing them, please feel free to email me. I have my email here, and it's lcorey@ccyj.org, and we can go ahead and take your questions. And I also want to open it up for anyone here in the room too, if you have any questions regarding this content, to also feel free to kind of engage and ask as well.
There are also other really great resources on that website for folks who might want like posters and wherever your place of work is, or pamphlets or brochures that are, everything's free of charge, but if you want to try to increase visibility for this population, just an idea. There are a lot of resources on our website, so it's a good one to check out.
Okay. Okay. Well, if we have no questions, we're going to go ahead and move on with our the rest of our core team meeting. Thank you so much to Alessandra for giving this presentation and helping facilitate the creation of this toolkit. And thank you so much again to the partners that you worked with, Alessandra, and the tribal communities that you worked with for this incredible content. I think a lot of it, as I was sitting here, as not a healthcare provider, but as someone who works in child welfare, a lot of it was really potent and I think very transferable, particularly the bits about, you know, going into the room. And the one quote that really stood out is like, you're not here to interview me, I'm here to interview you. And I think that was something that was particularly potent as I reflect on this presentation and on this video. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So now we're going to move into our general check-in. So this is open to all core team members, everyone who's on the phone. We're generally asking if you all have any questions, concerns, and or announcements that you'd like everyone else on the line to know about. Okay.
Actually, hey, it's
Go ahead.
Carissa from Spokane.
Hi, Carissa.
Hey, I just wanted
right.
to make sure everybody was aware of the Saying It Out Loud conference that's going to be held in Spokane next month. Yep. Okay. All right. I see that you have it. Perfect. So I was just going to do a shout out.
Great. Thank you so much. That's actually a really great transition to our reminders here at CCYJ. So we'll start with that. So this, Nicholas, did you want to talk about it?
Well, actually, Carissa, if you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit more about it, because I know you've been helping plan it. I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah, so it's a one-day conference in Spokane at the DoubleTree. It's only $50, and there's scholarships available. We have a wide array of exhibitors and providers, including Nicholas, who will be coming to talk to hopefully a wide array of providers from both Idaho and Washington. Just really to connect folks who are supporting and working with those who identify as LGBTQ+.
And I'll just add that I've been, for the past several years, presented at the original, I guess you'd say, Saying Out Loud conference in Tacoma, and just find it an excellent conference. And in fact, we were talking about it yesterday and thinking that we might actually do our spring convening next to the Tacoma Saying Out Loud conference, so folks can hopefully do both and sort of have a 2-day event, if you will. But yeah, I can't speak highly enough about it. I think it's incredibly educational and really, really valuable.
Well, and my hope is that that we can get enough folks here to show that it's something that we can do regularly on this side of the mountains in the way that they do it over in Tacoma. And so, making sure that law enforcement, juvenile court, all the folks know about it so that we can get those folks attending who are working with those who identify as LGBTQ+.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. The last kind of reminder that we had here at CCYJ was we are currently working on a grant update for the Pride Foundation. And like any good grant update, they want to know if there are any particular stories or any particular quotes that you have that really get at equality's work. So if you feel convicted, / if you have a quote that you really feel encompasses what equality does for you or for your organization, we'd love to have that so that we can submit that to our funders to keep the lights on. So feel free to email me or Nicholas, and we'd be happy to take those quotes. We have to turn it in before October 1st, so ideally, our quotes would be in by next week, Monday. And with that, thank you all so much for coming and attending this webinar. Our next core team meeting will be Tuesday, November 26th at 11 a.m. It will probably also be a Zoom meeting. This seems to have gone pretty smoothly for technology-wise. So look for the calendar invite and the calendar update. We are not sure quite yet what our webinar topic is, but we will be sure to email you all that as well. And thank you so much for attending.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.